I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by our partners at the Energy Saving Trust to explore another critical component of the net zero transition, how to decarbonise our homes. Mike Thornton is CEO of the Energy Saving Trust, where Laura McGadie is Group Head of Energy. Welcome to you both. Mike, maybe we can just begin by saying, what do we need to do? I mean, obviously there's a difference between existing homes and new homes that were being built, but for those of us who really would like to do this, what do you have in mind?
Okay, well, I think the problem's best illustrated by a few numbers. So about 20% of energy use and carbon emissions are in homes within the UK. So an awful lot of that energy within homes is used for heating. So if we don't decarbonise the heating in our homes, then we've got a problem. We can't reach the net zero pathway. And when we think about what low or zero carbon options there are, then the immediately practicable one is heat pumps. So the issue is that over time, not over an infinite amount of time, over relatively few years, nearly everybody in the UK who's using a gas boiler at the moment is going to have to transit to electric heating, and most of that electric heating will be heat pumps. And that's a conversation that is only just starting. And obviously, you can't have a transition in which consumers and householders are engaged, and if there hasn't even a conversation started about it. So certainly, we at the Energy Saving Trust are very keen to get that out there and to discuss what needs to be done, so that it provides the engagement with people which will be needed to actually get it done.
Laura, what ideas do you have for when, how, and actually who's going to pay for all this? Is it going to be all of us, either through our taxes or as individuals as we buy a new home or change a boiler or whatever?
When is a good question, and that's when your current system runs out. You know, we're not suggesting that it's a good idea for people to rip out systems that are working unless they're very inefficient. So when you're upgrading your system, it's definitely worth looking at what the new options are that will save you a lot more money in the long run, as well as cutting carbon and reduced other emissions like nitrogen dioxide, which is emitted by gas boilers, for example, so improving air quality. So that's the when. It's when it needs doing. In terms of who pays, we feel that it has to be affordable. It has to be an affordable alternative to a gas boiler. So if you can't afford to replace your gas boiler, then that's something that the government needs to step in and pay for, and we need grants for low income households. But you know, we all invest in a replacement boiler, so we would expect to be doing that for a new system. But I think where the extra help needs to come is from government or some other financing option to make up the difference, so that people aren't out of pocket over what they would be paying for a boiler.
Mike, do we know how many heat pumps are actually in British homes right now?
Well, we know that there's not very many. I suppose the number is increasing. I mean, there's some good news there, but it's about 70,000 are expected to be installed this year. And when you think there are, 25 million plus maybe gas boiler systems, then you can see that it needs to go up by orders of magnitude. And in fact, under the Prime Minister's 10-point plan, there is a target in England to put in 600,000 heat pumps a year by 2028. So that's approximately a 10-fold increase. That's probably, to be honest, that figure's probably a bit on the low side, but it does give you an idea of the scale of the transition that we'll be looking at. And, I guess you asked the question about when. The interesting thing is that every year you don't start, it gets harder, because for the net zero pathway to be achieved, the changeover has to take place by a certain time. So if you've got, say, 8 years to do it now, and you waste one of them by not starting, then you've only got 7 years, but you've still got the same amount of things to do. So there's a very sort of strong whiplash effect here. And what we need is to get scaling up that number very, very, very quickly. And as I say, the government does have those targets, and we're very much looking forward to seeing what their plans are to achieve them in the heat and building strategy, which will be coming out very soon now, we hope.
Yeah, I mean, Laura, do you have any idea what's in that? Have you been consulted? Have you been lobbied, or have you been lobbying, rather?
No, we're not party to such things, but we're certainly saying what we feel we need to see in it, as Mike has said, and he set that out pretty well. And I think heat pumps may sound like news to us, but when you look at what other countries in Europe are doing, we're quite far behind other countries. And places like Norway, a third of homes have already got heat pumps, and 95% of the new systems that are going in are heat pumps. So we just have to catch up, and hopefully the strategy will enable us to do that and do so quickly, as Mike says.
Well, Laura, but what are the barriers then to heat pumps? Are there enough people who know how to put them in, for example? Or is it just that people just don't want to change? We're familiar with gas or whatever.
Yeah, we've had a supply of gas, and that's been a comfortable, and easy. We know how it works. This is definitely a shift, and it's technology that may feel unfamiliar to a lot of us, and it is, for us, we see it's part of our role, job definitely, and others, to share information about heat pumps and how they work and overcome some of the myths that we hear bandied about, in order to give people confidence in that as a new technology. And as I say, it's new technology maybe in the UK to us, but it's quite common in other bits of Europe. So I think breaking down those barriers of unfamiliarity is something that needs to happen, definitely, so that everybody feels comfortable with it as a technology. And of course, from the supply chain perspective, it's a shift for the supply chain too, to retrain. Maybe, we're going to need fewer gas boilers installed, we're going to need more heat pumps installed. So that's a shift that needs to happen. And for that to happen, the industry needs certainty in the long-term future and direction of where we're going as a country for our heat supply. So again, that needs leadership from government. And we see that when there are incentives, like in Scotland, there are grants and loans available for heat pumps at the moment, and the fuel poverty programme in Scotland is putting in heat pumps. And when we see that leadership, we see the supply chain responding very well. And there are great opportunities to create green jobs.
Mike, could you come in on that? Because, if you talk to a lot of gas qualified plumbers and fitters, they're very often self-employed. Are they going to be taking time off to learn a new skill? Are those the people that we've got to attract to make it easier for us to get a heat pump fitted?
Well, they've got a vital part to play, and I suppose the answer is yes, they're going to be part of the solution. And I think, picking up Laura's point, there will also be a lot of new jobs that come through as a result of this transition. So if we're going to, in effect, change over nearly all the heating systems in the country, then that's billions of pounds of investment, and it could drive up to 200,000 jobs. These are big numbers. This is a national endeavour, which, as I say, the government has committed to in terms of its targets, and we're now waiting to see how they'll be implemented. But it will happen, and so what's going to happen with the existing supply chain is that over time, it's not like there will be no boilers going in tomorrow, as Laura said. It's a rapid but not cliff edge transition. But over a relatively short period of time, the big numbers are going to, and the big turnover and the jobs are going to start switching decisively to putting in heat pumps. And so the government does need to support the supply chain in that transition, just like it needs to support consumers to actually make the changeover in their homes. It's a classic piece of where state convening power, state support is the only real thing that can drive this sort of transition.
I was struck, Laura, when you were talking about the Norwegian example. Maybe some of us are having a failure of imagination. I mean, I'd like to know, what would my net zero home look like? This is what I want. I want one. What's it going to look like in 10 years' time or 5 years' time or whatever our time scale is going to be?
Well, the first thing is it's going to feel cozier. I can tell you that. And it's going to be really well insulated, because that's the first thing we have to do, because it doesn't matter what heating system you've got in. The way we can cut most emissions and make our homes most comfortable is by insulating. So it'll be really well insulated. You'll have an efficient system that keeps your home really cozy. You'll have appliances that are efficient. You'll probably have things that switch off and on automatically, and you'll have a smart meter that's really tracking your energy usage, so you're just paying for what you're actually using. And we expect lots more smart innovations to come out as time progresses. But I think the most important thing for all of us is that we'll live in very comfortable homes if we get it right.
Mike? Yeah, if I can just come in there, this is definitely not a hair shirt moment. Life will be better afterwards, not worse. And there is that famous quote from the science fiction author William Gibson that the future is already here, it's just unevenly distributed. And that's the case. There are heat pumps in this country. There's thousands of them. People are using them. They are living in the sort of comfort that Laura described. And we do have case studies. By all means, have a look on our website to see them, of people who've put in a heat pump and been, happy and happy, warmer, cozier as a result.
Laura, you said you've not been consulted on the heat and building strategy. Maybe I could consult you then and just say, if you had to put in a couple of things, I mean, we're talking very much about our existing homes, but presumably it wouldn't be absolutely extraordinary to say all new homes should have the following. I mean, is that something that you would like to see to get us at least started on this road a bit better?
Oh, absolutely, definitely. We've asked for that. But of course, new homes are only going to be a tiny proportion of the homes that we're living in 2050. So getting our existing homes upgraded is really important. And in a way, it's the harder job. But you're right, new homes have to, and we want new homes net zero as soon as possible, because every year, as Mike explained, every year that's lost is a lot of carbon that's emitted, and it only costs about 1-2% to make a home net zero and cut its carbon emissions by 90% if you do it now. And in 10 years, if you wait till 2030 to do that, we'll have pumped out another 10 tons of carbon per property in order to just not make that small investment up front. So and with that investment comes lower running costs as well. So it's a bit of a no-brainer. So we're definitely pushing for faster change for new build homes, but we cannot overlook the existing stock, because it's the homes that most of us will be living in.
Indeed, it is. Mike, Laura, thank you both very much. And a huge thank you to the Energy Saving Trust and to all our Net Zero Festival partners, without whom we wouldn't be able to stage this event.